Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Switch It Up podcast. Today, we won't be doing a Seattle Kraken expansion mock draft. We actually got the date wrong. It's 1 week later, so this week we'll be talking about a couple TikTok questions and a few free agent destinations. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be doing our Seattle Kraken mock draft next week. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today, being that we're recording this on the July 4th, the Sunday, is the Nathan Phillips hot dog eating contest, which, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, was a shit show for a variety of reasons. Basically, they bring out every year, if you're unfamiliar, 12 very famous competitive eaters to the stage on Coney Island, New York, to eat a massive amount of hot dogs in a span of 12 minutes. Basically, Joey Chestnut, obviously, is the hot dog eating champion of the world, and he broke his own record of 74 hot dogs in 12 minutes by beating it with a total of 76 hot dogs and buns consumed. Now, the reason this was a shit show is because, I don't know if you caught it, Huz, but the cameraman had to cut 3 separate times to go to commercial in the span of these 12 minutes. So we had all this lead up, the introductions, like, the number 1 pound for pound hot dog eating champion, and we're getting all excited. And then we only got to witness 3 minutes of this entire competition, which was just a shit show. It's incredible. But I couldn't, I don't know where they store the food. I remember watching a thing in middle school where it was like you could pour a certain amount of liquid into somebody's stomach and their stomach would explode. So where do you put 76 hot dogs?
Honestly, yeah, as crazy as it sounds, he's been doing it every year. So I guess he's been
It's
just training
unreal.
for, people that eat food for a living or competition wise, they are completely different breed. Like everything they do leading up to their competition is just, prepping for that moment.
Yeah.
And I personally don't understand how they do it. He did
No,
it. So
man.
it was actually 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes, not
Yeah.
12,
Oh, it was 10
which was,
minutes?
yeah, it was 10 minutes.
God,
Yeah.
man.
And the crazy part is like, he's eating 76 of them,
It's
right?
7.6
So
hot dogs a minute.
is he,
What?
is he starving himself like
Oh my
3 days
God.
prior and then eating all of them at once? But like you're like the question you're asking, like where it goes, like nobody knows. No, is he
Man.
like shitting on a shitter all day long and
It's
just going in one?
122,000 calories.
That's messed up, man. That is totally messed up.
Oh my God. I don't understand. That's like 62 days worth of calories. It just his stomach must explode the next day. I wouldn't want to be in his house. Just a ridiculous thing. You can probably catch the highlights on YouTube if you haven't seen it. Just well worth a watch. Ridiculous entertainment. That to me is the epitome of American television. It is like the most American thing ever.
So I didn't watch the competition. Obviously, I was working. But like, are they eating the hot dogs as is, or are they eating like with the bun as well?
Oh, with the bun, yeah.
Oh my
So,
God.
no, see what Joey did, which I thought was interesting and kind of like a
Does
tactic, is he
he
would,
does he dip it in the water?
yeah, what he takes off the buns, eats the buns
Okay.
separately, has the buns in one hand and the hot dogs in another, and he'll
Right.
dip the bun in the water, shove the buns down, and then go after the 2 hot dogs at once, which is just an insane thing to watch.
Honestly, like even just thinking about like them dipping the buns into the water and then eating it, just almost makes me throw up.
Oh
Like
my
this is
God.
so gross.
It's
That is
so
so.
disgusting, man.
Speaking of like eating competitions, there was one I remember when I used to work security at the 1280 pub at McMaster.
Oh yeah.
Um, when it was St. Patty's Day, we had a pancake eating competition in the morning of,
Oh my God.
and all the security guys were like, you know what, we want in as well, so let's just hop on stage and eat pancakes. And I think it was like a stack of pancakes, and you had to finish in like 30 seconds or so.
Right.
And none of us obviously finished it. We basically went there to get free pancakes and just
Yeah.
enjoy it, and that's what we were doing. And then literally the 2 groups afterwards, they're just going hard at it, like they're just going at it. And I remember this one tiny Asian girl, she finished them within 12 seconds, and
What?
I don't understand. I still to this day, I don't
People are
understand how.
crazy.
I genuinely don't understand how she finished that in 12 seconds. But like watching her eat it, she was dipping it in water and she was
Right.
eating the
That's
pancakes. I'm
gotta
like,
be what it
that's
is.
so gross. Like, how are you
Oh,
not throwing up? Like, how
that's
are you used
just
to that?
food for zero enjoyment. It is just like to
Yeah.
get it down to get it down. Like
Yeah.
it's
So to be fair
horrible.
though, like the reason why all the security guys did it was because the winner of the competition got a nice little mini fridge,
Oh,
and it was like
nice.
Coors Light brand too, so it was like
Oh,
really
sick.
cool. But she won the fridge. I'm like, the fridge is literally bigger than you.
Oh
You
my
know, like
God,
you gotta carry
man.
this home now. Like it
That's
was just the
crazy.
funniest thing we've seen.
I saw, just to transfer from competitive eating over to something else. I saw this really cool thing. Sean McKenzie on TikTok posed this question, and for him, he said it was like the question that gets the most debate of any question he'll ask at parties, just like as a conversation starter. And the question was, if you had to fight somebody to take over their life, but if you don't win the fight, you die. So it's to the death. But if you
Okay.
win the fight, you have to take over their life. Who are you
Okay.
fighting? Because a lot of tactic comes into this, right? So if you
Yeah.
fight like Brock Lesnar to take over
Yeah.
his life, you're not going to win.
Right.
So it's who do you fight and why? And the most popular answer was the Queen of England, which I thought was fucking hilarious.
But why would you want that life though?
Right, exactly.
Because like she's old. Like
Right. It's
how old is she? Like you're from England,
she's
obviously,
got it. She's got to be 90 plus, I
right?
believe.
Yeah. So like why would you want that quality of life? Like I get it that you are the Queen of England and you're over 90 plus, but like you're over 90 plus, you have only a couple years to go.
Exactly. That's my
Like
whole thinking too.
with me, I'm fighting Charlie D'Amelio, no problem. Give me your followers, give me your money.
That's incredible.
No,
That's a good answer.
obviously, I don't support hitting women. Obviously,
No,
never,
of
ever,
course.
ever.
Of
But
course not.
like if I'm
Hypothetical situation.
you got it. Like if I have like literally no choice on me right now, and I have to fight someone, and then if I beat them, I get their life. If I don't, I die. Then obviously that's the easiest option for me.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Or a newborn baby, and it's
yeah, just new life. Just
yeah.
Knowing what you know now that'd be a pretty good idea, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, Conor McGregor, no question. No, I'm kidding. That's
Well, it was nice
not,
knowing you, buddy.
obviously not true.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting one because I wouldn't know whether to like pick a successful like middle-aged woman of some kind. Again, never condone hitting women, but just in terms of like a successful.
That is so crazy that we both chose women.
I know, but just because it's a relatively easy win.
That is brutal.
But I think either something like that, or I maybe think like I feel like I could take David Dobrik. Maybe I feel like that would be like it'd probably be tight, but I'm like way bigger than him. He's like 5'10", and he's also like a $160. So I got like 30 pounds on him.
Yeah, that's a great.
I feel like that'd be a half decent answer. But yeah, I thought that was a super interesting question. Another thing, TikTok wise, I wanted to talk about quickly.
Actually, I'm gonna take Sean McKenzie.
Yeah?
Just the guy who's asked the question. I'm going right at him.
Yeah. If you hear this, Sean, we'll put this on. It's a great event. Buy it. I promise it's not like the YouTube TikTok boxing scam, but
it'd be a lot better.
Yeah, it's another TikTok I wanted to find. So I don't know if you see these, and I don't know if the listeners see any of these TikToks with Gary Vee in them. He's like quite a popular guy, like a figure in terms of like business and starting a business. And he's all about like the grind and pushing the boundaries, and it's all about like success and going to garage sales and kind of making a buck very quickly. Mm-hmm. I saw the best TikTok I have ever seen in my entire life, which was Gary Vee giving one of his classic speeches about how he would give his left leg to be able to go back and have $0 now because he would love it just for the grind. And I'm like,
oh my God.
I'm like, Gary, shut up, man. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And his whole thing was like,
that is such utter bullshit. Like, there's no way.
So the premise of this was he was taking a fan's question. And the fan was like, if you had no money right now, and you had to sell rocks, right?
Right.
Just
okay, I saw that one.
Balls of rock to people. What would you do and how would you become a millionaire? And he sits there with a straight face and he's like, listen, I would love this challenge because I would love just to be able to go back to having $0 for the grind itself. Here's what I would do. I would go to a middle-aged or a middle-income community and I would market these rocks as incredible pieces of art. And I would sit there and I would pound them with the hammer and I would market them as art. And then I would have Leonardo DiCaprio take a picture and post it on Instagram. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, cool. Like we all have access to Leonardo DiCaprio who's going to post pictures of your rocks on his Instagram. That's how we're going to do it.
That's like equivalent to like Donald Trump saying, my father loaned me, just $1 million.
Oh my God, man. It's so ridiculous. That's like, how do you want to make it in this world? Well, I'm going to go get $1 billion from somebody and then I'm going to be rich. Like, it's just, give me a break. I thought that was just the funniest TikTok ever. He's like, I would give my left leg to be able to go back to $0. Okay, Gary, then give away your money. It's just ridiculous. Another thing I wanted to talk about today is a couple of hockey things, just briefly. So obviously, with the expansion draft coming up, Seattle is making a bunch of moves and planning for the expansion draft. But I think the difference is in this season versus when Vegas went through expansion is that teams now understand that Vegas had so much leverage, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if you're the GM, George McPhee at the time is Vegas's GM. He had so much leverage going into that year where every team in the NHL knew that one player was going to get taken no matter what.
Right.
So I think in the next 2 weeks, we're going to see a ton of teams go to other teams and trade their players. Because where we saw Vegas being like, I won't take this player if you give me a 3rd round pick, or I will give you this player if you give me a 2nd round pick, and so on and so forth. They were making those little deals. I think what we're going to see in the next 2 weeks and what we're already seeing is teams with expendable assets going to teams that don't have leverage. Like the example being Nashville and LA just made a trade for Victor Arvidsson. And so Nashville saw that Arvidsson was a potential player that could be claimed. So Vegas, having zero leverage for a guy like Arvidsson, because they don't get to go around in the summertime and, say, I want a player off everybody's team. And, Nashville is able to unload him for a 2nd and a 3rd, which, credit to them. They got, money back for their assets, or they got picks back, and now they're able to move on. And I think in the coming days, we're going to see a ton of teams doing that, making these small moves for picks in order to stop Seattle being a similar juggernaut to Vegas coming out of the expansion draft.
I think honestly, like the way Seattle's gonna, I don't think Seattle's going for like the win right off the bat. I don't think they're going to go with Vegas' approach, and I'm sure like the teams around the league know that as well. Vegas at the time, when was the last like expansion draft before Vegas? It was like a while ago.
A long time.
Right, a long time ago, right? So that's why Vegas had that strategy plan, because it hasn't been done in forever. Now, with it being done like 3 years ago, Seattle really has to start from the bottom and work their way up. I don't see Seattle being a juggernaut right off the bat like Vegas was. But at the end of the day, like obviously they're the NHL GMs and they're at that position for a reason, so they know what they're doing at the end of the day. But still, I personally think that they should go the route of where thinking about more of the future than now.
Yeah, I think like Vegas, I don't know whether it was they got lucky. They had a bunch of lucky picks. Like
I don't think
to score 40 out of the gate, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, like for Seattle, it's that GMs are now more experienced in this, and they're not going to be bullied into picks, right? Like they've had years to prepare, and with Vegas, it was they didn't know how the expansion draft was going to work. They threw them into it, and they kind of forced the GMs to negotiate for these players. Like they were able to get Marc-Andre Fleury and picks to take him. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
So
and like looking back at that now, like
it's incredible. Some of those picks are absolutely ridiculous. Like, and even they also got insanely lucky in that draft, getting guys like Shea Theodore and getting Nick Suzuki out of the gate, who they turned into Max Pacioretty, and like all the niche moves worked out like extremely well for them. Obviously, making the trade with Ottawa to get Mark Stone was incredible as well.
Right.
But yeah, I think in the coming days and in the coming weeks here, leading up to July 21st, we're going to see a ton of teams make these tiny moves for picks so that Seattle doesn't get to manipulate them. Like Nashville, for example, I think is one team you'll see make a ton of moves, because they're going to go, at least I believe they'll probably opt for the 4 and 4, like the 4 D-men and the 4 forwards instead of 7, 3, and 1.
Right.
Mostly because they really don't have a choice. Like Roman Josi, they have to protect him, right? Ryan Ellis, they have to protect him. Matthias Ekholm, you might want to move Matthias Ekholm just because he's got a year left, but I feel like he's a guy you could probably opt to move. But they're so packed on D, and teams that have the 4, 4, and 1 option instead of the 7, 3, you'll probably see a bunch of forwards.
No, I agree 100% on that one.
And the other NHL little tidbit I wanted to talk about is this is probably, with the expansion draft going on, one of the craziest summers we're going to have in a while. You have free agents like Taylor Hall, who I think we both think is most likely going to go back to Boston.
I agree that he would. like the reason why I think he's going back to Boston is because he basically gave Buffalo no option in trading him into other teams.
Exactly.
He said, "I want to go to Boston,
Yep.
and that's it. Like, there's no other teams on my list. Boston, my
Yeah.
team. Do you get the best deal you can and ship me off to Boston?"
Right.
So I like for that reason alone, I think he still resigns with Boston, and Boston is still a juggernaut of a team with the way they performed in the playoffs.
Yeah. Completely.
Obviously, the goaltending situation is where there are question marks because we don't know what's going on with Tuukka Rask now.
Yep.
He did underperform in the playoffs, losing in the second round to New York. But at the end of the day, they still are a great offensive and defensively team. So
yeah, and to be fair to Taylor Hall, he turned it around going to Boston. Like he was a different caliber player. Obviously, he's playing with a lot more talent, so that'll have a lot to do with it.
Well, there was talent in Buffalo too. Don't get me wrong, but it's just the chemistry wasn't there in Buffalo, whereas it is in in Boston with it.
Yeah, and you're obviously playing with guys that are like insane caliber. Like he got shifts with Bergeron. He got shifts on the power play. Like he was playing with guys that are you're not going to get to see. Whereas he was supposed to be the leader in Buffalo.
Yeah, like I totally agree. It's just Eichel didn't really play. Yeah, so Eichel really didn't play his best hockey either this year. Obviously playing through injuries and stuff. But the whole team atmosphere and the team itself with Buffalo, they just weren't. It just wasn't their season, really.
So I saw a report. You bring up Jack Eichel. So this is another thing that's setting the NHL abuzz. Is like, does Eichel move, and if so, where? But I saw a report that said that Boston would be in on Jack Eichel, which again would mean Taylor Hall would not get re-signed because the money wouldn't work. But that they would consider moving Pasternak in order to bring in Eichel, which I think is bananas because Pasternak is almost better than Jack Eichel. Granted, I get the center thing is important. But I don't even think I would do that, to be really honest.
I personally do think that Eichel has a higher ceiling than Pastrnak.
Yeah.
He's just the complete all-around player. Pasternak's just a goal scorer.
Right.
And he's an elite goal scorer. Don't get me wrong. He's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, you can set up to that line too.
Yeah, and I just don't see Boston breaking that lineup at all. It's the best line in hockey right now.
Yeah.
And the thing with Eichel, like, I just don't see him in Boston. I don't see it happening.
I also don't know the assets they would give up in an Eichel trade. Like I can see a few teams. Like I can see teams like LA, teams like Philly, New York. Like those teams have a ton of prospects in the pipeline. But I just don't know if Boston.
I think
what it takes.
Well, I did like hear some stuff with like Calgary, talking to Buffalo about Eichel moving Kachuk and whoever, et cetera, like a bunch of players
for a blockbuster.
Exactly. But I just don't, as much as I would want to see Eichel out of Buffalo because I want to see him excel in the league.
Yeah.
Just as a hockey fan to begin with, I just don't see it happen. I think he stays in Buffalo.
Oh, really? I think it's almost certain he moves. Like the reports I've read are just that like Buffalo's asking for assets that are a first round pick plus, and it's likely to happen like before the end of the season.
I don't think anyone like wants to give that up plus picks on top of that, right?
Oh, like if you're the New York Rangers, hear me out on this one. Okay. New York has the deepest prospect pool in all of hockey, right? Yeah. They have Vitaly Kravtsov, who's yet to crack the NHL. I think he's played like 5 games, and he's the highest rated prospect who has not played a long time in the NHL yet. So you could include a guy like him. You've got defenseman out the wazoo, right? Obviously, you won't trade Adam Fox now. He would have been a potential, but he just won the Norris, so he's probably off the table.
They'd be stupid to trade him, but yeah.
Right. But you could throw in a guy like Lafreniere, potentially, right? Who would be far more than a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks. But you could package him, a defenseman who would be, I think they have around 3 really top-end defensive prospects. A guy like Kravtsov, you could easily acquire Eichel. And think about it. It's New York City. He's an American-born player. He's got the potential to go down as one of the best American players ever if he lives up to his potential, which, I mean, he's already been a 100-point player. So at that point, it's like, do you make that trade? Do you get him into the capital? Because I almost think you could market him more than you could market Lafreniere. So it's just a question of what New York would be willing to give up and if it makes sense. But I think if I'm New York, I pull the trigger.
Yeah, I guess with Buffalo picking number 1 as well, like, or the first overall pick this coming draft, like that does kind of make sense. It's just, I don't know, like, but like I did see recent reports where Buffalo and Eichel were working on, his surgery that's supposed to happen, right? So they're on the right path, I guess, now in terms of like their relationship with each other,
right?
But at the end of the day, I just don't see. I personally don't like the idea of moving superstars like Eichel.
I know.
And so I just don't see it happening. Like,
I know it would definitely be one of the bigger trades to go down. I just think for me, it would be New York has the ability to win right now, right? Like they have the
Right.
goaltending in Shesterkin. They have Adam Fox, who just came off the Norris. They got
Right.
Artemi Panarin, who's not getting any younger. They got, older defense. They got guys like Ryan Strome, Buchnevich, Zibanejad, who are all mid-20s, 29, 28. Eichel's 25, I want to say, 24. I think he's probably 24.
He's our age. Yeah, 24.
Yeah, so 24. Yeah, so he's 24. You got a guy like Lafreniere who's on the way younger side, and a guy like Kratzev who's on the way younger side. You bring in Eichel, then your core is kind of the exact same age, so they could kind of age with one another. You let Buffalo have the first overall pick to rebuild with Lafreniere and whoever else you give them, right? So they got Owen Power on D, they got Deline, they got Lafreniere. It makes sense for both sides. However, it would be one of the biggest trades to go down in the last 10 years. I mean, it would be astronomical for the league. Because Eichel's without doubt. I would say if he's probably a top 10 player when he's healthy, I would say, in the league. It'd be very debatable, but I'd probably put him top 10 just because he's a center.
Yeah, exactly. 100% healthy, he definitely is top 10.
Yeah. And so with that too, it's like as it relates to the Leafs, where do you think Zach Hyman ends up? Because obviously we've seen reports Freddie Anderson is likely to resign. I don't know what the term on that would be because
honestly, I'll take it. I don't care. Like
yeah,
Freddie's I've been saying it all year. I mean, I don't know. Ever since Freddie's been on our team, he's been my guy. So I'd love to see. Yeah. I know. There's a lot of my friends that hate him.
I don't even hate him. I love him. He's the goalie of our of our childhood or whatever, our generation. But man, it's like what number do you bring him back at?
I mean, what he's making now, which is maybe a little more, but that's it.
I wouldn't pay him that because he's not a starter anymore. He's at best a tandem goalie.
Montreal's paying Jake Allen 4.5.
Not next year. That was 1 year.
Yeah,
next year it goes down.
But see, the thing is, I also read where Marner's making about $6 million next year, right? So they'll have more.
It stays though.
Does it though?
Yeah, it does. It's over the term of the contract, which is BS. But yeah, Marner made a crap ton up front.
Yeah, so coming back to Hyman, I don't see him resigning with Toronto. I think he ends up in Edmonton.
Edmonton,
really? I think he goes to Edmonton. The reason why it's because he's the perfect fit for McDavid on that line.
I know
the guy who's checking or who's going in deep for pucks, receiving them and getting them back to McDavid. That would be scary. Like seriously, that would be scary to see.
He'd be doing what he did for Matthews for McDavid.
Exactly, and then McDavid is like 3 times the player Matthews is.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
but he's definitely better. I don't know about 3 times.
Yeah, well, maybe like 2.5 times, but like he is like literally twice as what Matthews is. Like seriously, like the guy's on a different level. He's like he's in his own league of play. Like I
mean, Matthews is a better goal scorer than McDavid. McDavid's on another world in terms of how to be a hockey player.
But that's what Hyman was perfect for.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Right? It would be a very scary situation having them on a line together, especially he is what Lucic wasn't when the Oilers had Lucic. Like, he is exactly what they kind of wished he was.
I mean, Lucic was also really old. I mean, he wasn't really old, but he was near the end of his career. So
no, they signed him to a 7-year, $49 million contract.
That's just Edmonton's GM being a dum dum,
Yeah, but they expected him. My point is they expected him to be like a Hyman, but better than Hyman, And if they signed Hyman, he'd be what they never got in Lucic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's just that Lucic was old at the time when he signed that contract, so he's on the decline of his career, where it literally made no sense for them to sign him for 7 years, but they did because they're stupid and they're Edmonton.
I mean, the thing is they didn't even get 1 year. He was 30 when he signed the deal, but they didn't even get a year of him being good. It was just a disaster from the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Hyman probably the Oilers would be a really good guess. I think the Rangers is another place he could go. It really depends on money and
really the Rangers. So I honestly my 2 teams that I had were either Edmonton or Vancouver. I think he stays in Canada, cool. But I would love to see him if he's not playing for Toronto next year, which I really don't see happening. I'd love to see him play with McDavid.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Just as a Leafs fan, it'd be sweet to see him play. Give him talent that I think. Coming from Zach Hyman's situation, we've talked about it on the pod before, but there's no setup. There's no line he could be on better than a Matthews and Marner. The only one is the McDavid line.
McDavid,
his only situation. Dougie Hamilton is the last kind of big name out there. Now I saw a freaking report that just made me angry that said that the Leafs would be he would be interested in signing with the Leafs, which literally fuck off because we don't have the cap and we can't afford you. So stop putting thoughts in our heads.
Honestly, I think Dougie Hamilton resigns in Carolina. And
Really, eh?
the way Carolina's defense is set up and the way they're playing right now
I
with their
know.
goalies as well, playing through the roof with Nedeljkovic, it would be stupid for him to leave that
Yeah,
team. I guess if he's because I have heard many things about him being like a pain in the ass in the locker room, but
yeah, a
at the
bit of a
same
head
time, like
case.
you know, because like he was drafted by Boston, then moved to Calgary, and
Yep.
now what's it called, Carolina, right?
Yep.
So I just don't see like obviously teams would want him. He's a great defensive hockey player,
For sure.
and he's a great defenseman. Period. But I
Yeah,
just don't
absolutely.
see why he would leave Carolina.
Well, that's the thing is, I think that right now we're seeing a shift from players who were chasing money, which was
Right.
Matthews, Marner, Eric Carlson, like guys who were chasing big contracts, to guys who will
Versus
take less to
winning.
win. I think with COVID happening, like COVID being a big thing, that's reduced the cap, which means it can't go up. So guys are more likely to take team-friendly contracts, which
Right.
screw that because it's absolutely ruined the Leafs with Marner and Matthews signing their big deals before COVID, but at the same time, we're getting now these guys who are chasing the cup. And Carolina is a very frugal team. They don't really pay for players, like Aho being the prime example of that, who he got an offer sheet from Montreal at a very team friendly, like 8 million or 7.5, which is
Right.
just crazy. So they got him at a team friendly deal. If they could get Dougie back at a reasonable rate, that would be unbelievable for
Man,
them.
can you imagine Montreal with Aho on their team right
Oh
now?
my God.
That'd
It'd
be
just be,
filthy.
he's the
That'd be
guy they're
filthy.
missing, though. That's the thing. It's like, I watched them
Well,
play.
no, because they have Caulfield now. He's that guy. Like he's a goal
Yeah, but
scorer
he's
that they
young.
need.
He's not
He's
there
young,
where
but
Aho's there now. Like
well,
Aho's the guy, whereas Cowfield might be the guy in 3-4
no,
years.
he will be the guy. Like the way
Yeah.
the way he's played so far, he is their guy. Like I get that he's only like 18 or 19 or however old he is, but
Yeah.
Aho's a lot older than he is, but he is their guy
Well,
now.
that's what I mean is
Yeah,
like Aho. If you put Aho right now, like a 24
right.
year old Aho on their team, like
That's
Aho's a
their
star
Caulfield
in
in
the
3 years.
league.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas Caulfield's like, you can't expect him to be the number one option right now. He's like what 18, 19. Like he's
But that's
not.
the thing, they are like kind of using him as their number one option, which is
Oh
great to
yeah,
see.
he's a stud. It's just he's gonna be so much better in 3 years.
Oh,
Like they got
100%.
such
Oh
a
yeah,
good
like
player in him,
put
man.
some
He's
more
gonna
muscle
be.
on the kid, and he's gonna be dominating the
I
league.
remember us sitting in my place in Mississauga, going, "Don't let Caulfield go to Montreal.
Oh
Don't
yeah,
let Caulfield go to Montreal." And all
and
these
then
names
they
come off
picked
the
it. Yeah.
board, and they go and take him. And I'm like, "How could you have passed? He just because the guy's short doesn't mean he's not going to be electric."
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, speaking of Montreal,
Yeah,
obviously we had a couple predictions going on a couple weeks ago,
we did.
with the way the playoffs or the finals would be going.
Yep.
And
Jake's gonna get one finally over on us. How about that? Unreal.
hey,
I
it's not
mean,
over
the
yet.
the
It's not over
Cinderella
yet.
story had to stop at some point. And I kind of Tampa is a team where they're $15 million over the cap, which is every Montreal Canadiens fan's excuse. But listen, you can't take away anything from Montreal. They have
No.
absolutely had a Cinderella story. And I said it on the podcast. Like, if they beat Vegas, point proven. They've made their point. They're a great team. And it wasn't a fluke. They made the final. But at the same time, like, if you've watched the series, Tampa is, they're just so complete. Like, Montreal dominated them for, 5 periods in the last 3 games. But that they have Vaz, they have the unbelievable decor, and they just capitalize on their chances, which Montreal doesn't.
See, game one, we watched it together.
Yeah.
I think Montreal or Tampa dominated Montreal in every period, and
Yeah, I did
the
too.
reason why I think that happened was because the guys were nervous.
I agree.
It's a
Yeah,
young team, and they
of
were just trying to
course.
get their legs underneath them.
Yep.
So I expected a better bounce back game two, which obviously they were the better team in game
They
two,
were by
except
far.
the bounces didn't go their way. And then
Yep.
same thing if you look at game three, for the first 2 periods, Montreal is a better team again. They were outworking Tampa,
Yep.
and then just lucky bounces went Tampa's way. So, how many lucky bounces can you get? Obviously, they're up 3-0, so it's like right
Yeah.
on the brink of another or a repeat championship. But I think with Carey Price being in this pressure situation, this is when he plays his best hockey. So we'll see tomorrow
Yeah.
night how he bounces back in game four. If they play to survive, win and survive for another day, or if that's it for them.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, Stamkos had a good point this morning. For those of you listening, I took Tampa in 5 games, and Huz took the Habs in 6.
Yeah.
You may have seen it on our Instagram, but yeah. So selfishly, I hope that Montreal wins tomorrow night, and then
And then they
Tampa
win.
clinches. So
Yeah.
just to be right for once. classic prediction. But at the same time, too, Stamkos had a great point, which was we know series are played in 7 games. It's best of 7. And we know that it's very likely that you're not going to win 4 in a row. And we don't play to win 4 in a row. And as a team, we're going to come out and play each game like it's the next hockey game, which I think they've done it. They've been here. They've done it before. Carey Price has looked very human, if not like worse than average in the Stanley Cup Finals, which he has not been in the regular playoff or every other playoff series. He's been absolutely incredible. And if he's not their best player, they don't have a chance. It's just he can't play like he did in the regular season. He's got to be their backbone.
I saw a couple Habs fans saying, start Jake Allen for Game 4.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm like,
That's
are you serious?
You have zero chance if you do that.
Like, why?
Yeah,
why would
I
you think
saw.
that? Like,
I saw a report through the betting websites that right now Montreal has a 2.8% chance to win the best of 7 series, like to come back from 3-0. Carey Price is that 2.8%. Like that is he is that 2.8%. You have
literally
you have zero chance if you start Jake Allen. It's unreal. Like you just got to rely that Carey could put you on your back for 4 games, and maybe the offense comes up and there are a bunch of 2-1 games or 2-0 games, and then maybe you win. But my God.
So my buddy Fordsy, beauty.
Yeah.
First of all, great guy. He had a question for the pod.
Okay.
And relating to Montreal series, and he asked if Fleury, never went out to play that puck, in that series, maybe we'd have a competitive Cup Finals right now. So, I personally think that wouldn't have mattered if he came out or not. Obviously, they would have won that game. They would have won that game because it was 2 minutes left, and that's when Anderson scored the tying goal, or whoever scored the tying goal it was. But at the same time, like, if they won that game, they still lost the next 2 or 3 games after that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Forsey, he did misplay the puck. The puck went in. Anderson scored, and Montreal's in the finals. So who's to say what would have happened in the extra game? Like if they play an extra, it goes to Game 7. It's up in the air. Who's to say? I like Carey Price's odds in a Game 7. That's just me, because I had to sit through it. I had to sit through it with the Leafs.
The thing the thing that bothered me so much was that they gave up on Fleury so quick.
I know.
Like they put Robert Leonard in.
It did work though. Like Robert Leonard won. So I mean.
But then he lost right after. Like they put. Yeah. So they won Game 3, I believe it was, or whichever one it was, and then Game 3, and then they put Fleury back in for Game 4, and they lost Game 4 or Game 5. Sorry.
Yes.
So it was Game 4, then Game 5, and then Game 6 they put Leonard back in.
I know.
So like
that's the thing though. Vegas is the one team that can sort of do that because they have 2 starting goalies. But I know what you mean. Like you want to give it to Fleury because he's the vet, the experience.
The thing with goalies, it's not even the him being the vet. It's just that the whole team dynamic changes because the guys in front of you play a different style of play, like different style of hockey when they know who's behind them in net.
Yeah, to be fair to Pete DeBoer though, like he's been playing Fleury and Leonard consistently, like game after game. Like they've never started 2 in a row.
but not in the playoffs though, right?
I know, but people expected them to do it in the playoffs. Like they didn't do it up until the Montreal series, but people had expected them to do it because then obviously Leonard got blown out 7-1.
Well, they did it in the Colorado series,
right. That was his one game, and then he played that. And it was terrible, and they started Fleury for the rest of the series, and obviously they did very well. But yeah, I mean, it was tough because you're also in a tough spot where Fleury had allowed that terrible goal and misplayed the puck. But if it's me, and I'm sure if it's you too, like you want to let Fleury make up for that bad decision and you want to put him between the pipes again. But I mean, they ended up winning that game and they didn't win the next one. So, I mean, it is fair enough. If they had lost that next game, then maybe, it's a different debate, but tough. I had another question, from somebody that says, you're in charge of the NHL. Bettman gets the boot. So we're firing Gary. What are the first 3 changes you make to hockey? Whether it's like for franchises, whether it's rule changes, what do you do? And what are the first 3 things you do to implement,
Damn, that's a really tough question. I think the first thing that pops up in my mind, like right off the bat, is the way they play overtime. Instead of 5 minutes to 3-on-3, I'd make it maybe 10 minutes to 3-on-3.
Yeah.
And it's exciting hockey. Who doesn't love 3-on-3? I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they don't like it.
No,
it's super fast paced, and you see players like really play to their true potential with so much space on the ice, basically.
Yeah.
the other two, like I really don't know, man. Like I think maybe
It's tough.
just like I like the Canadian division and like all that, so maybe keep that the same.
Interesting.
You
Okay.
know, I would definitely, that would be my second thing, is try that out for another couple of years and see how that works out.
That'd be
And
cool.
then, you know, and then making the All-Star game East versus West
That'd be
again,
sick.
rather
That's a
rather
great
than, you
one.
know, each rather than like each divisional, you know,
I
playing
couldn't
opposite
agree
other.
more. That'd be sweet.
I think the East West, and then obviously allowing players to play in the Olympics.
Yeah, of
That's one
course. I
thing,
mean,
you
you
know.
have
So
to. That's the thing. For me, I would love to see them go back to the 1v8 playoff seeding, just
hmm
because I think that was awesome, and it also gets you out of this crappy divisional lineup. Like you could end up playing anybody in your conference, which is really cool.
right,
You don't have to have the same matchups year in year out, which I think is I don't like it personally.
right,
I would get rid of the shootout for sure. That would be gone. So whether it's 10 minutes or 3-on-3, like you said, or whether they just do a 5-on-5 like they do in the playoffs, but I would do something along those lines. Just get rid of it completely. Just because I don't like having games decided by a shootout. I think it skews standings and it's not ideal. And then the last thing is there's a lot of problems now we have with the inflation and Canadian teams attracting players. So I would, like Tampa, for example, has the ability to have a 0% tax. So they have a lot of advantages in terms of luring free agents and paying them less money in comparison to the tax rate that we have in Canada, and specifically Ontario with the Leafs, or even Montreal, and the Quebec tax rate is just insanely high. So the percentage of the cap for a top player in Montreal would be far greater than it would be in Tampa. So for me, as I would have Canadian teams cap hit in Canadian dollars, that
right,
way, or whatever the equivalency is to American dollars, and that way it
right.
would give them an offset to kind of even the playing field. I'm sure it will never happen because teams would be furious if it did, because obviously then you'd have to account for the tax rate of every single state in the United States as well.
Right.
But I'd love to see them be able to have like a level playing field. That way, players could kind of pick teams without the fear of tax rates, or teams wouldn't have more incentives to get players, which I think would even out the game. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I'd love to hear other people's takes. If you guys have a rule change in the NHL that we didn't think of, I'd love to hear what some of those are. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about today, which I thought was kind of interesting news, is that Instagram announced today that they are completely changing the platform, and they're no longer going to be a video or a photo sharing app. So you're not going to have like your timeline of photos. You're not going to have. It's going to be an e-commerce website focused on shopping. So it's like a lot of productsy. So they're going to see on your explore page, you're going to have a lot of products,
Right.
and it's going to be a TikTok competitor. So they're going to
Hmm.
have you're going to see a lot more reels, and instead of seeing like what you do now, you'll scroll on your Instagram feed, you'll see a bunch of your friends' pictures and videos.
Right.
You're going to see mostly videos, and they'll skew in pictures here and there. Um,
Okay. So do you think that, like, social media all started from what I can remember, obviously like MySpace and all that kind of bullshit,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but it really did begin with Facebook, like
yeah.
when it really like kind of exploded and everyone started going on.
Right.
So do you feel like, with the way Facebook's life expectancy, however you say that word, went and it is now, do you feel like Instagram's kind of following that same path, where it started off amazing, everyone's on it,
Yeah,
everyone's enjoying it, and then it went on to like the advertisement parts, and then, you know, the
yeah.
videos and all that kind of stuff, to what you're seeing now and becoming a competitor with TikTok. Do you see that Instagram will soon die down within the next couple of years, and then
Well,
TikTok's the next big thing?
that's the thing, is like the world is such an evolving place and nothing is stagnant. And that's like, if
Right.
you had asked me 3 years ago what is one thing that will always be there in the future, my answer probably would have been Instagram, just because it's so
Right.
popular and so
Yeah.
like dynamic for the user. But now it's like TikTok has become so popular and so quick. Like it was kind of the perfect time with the pandemic, like people just got really into it.
hmm
um, but it's a video sharing app, right? And I
Yeah.
think people appreciate the photos on Instagram. Like
Yeah.
people still go on
I
Instagram.
personally do. Yeah.
And also, Instagram has the potential, if they do this right. Now, I don't know
Right.
if they will, because there's a lot of like tough kind of decisions that will have to be made. But if they do
hmm
it right, it could easily become like the go-to shopping place. Like if you want to go on and you see your favorite celebrity or Instagram personality
I
wearing
disagree with
something,
that. I disagree. The only reason why,
sure,
so, personal experience,
yeah,
twice I think. There's so many ads on Instagram where, oh,
yeah,
you buy this, this, and that. I was like, I'm stupid enough to fall for it,
for
obviously.
sure, yeah.
Twice
Aren't we
now,
all?
twice now,
Mm-hmm.
twice now. And whatever I honestly, at this point, I don't even know what I ordered,
Right,
but it was actually really cool. So one was a hoodie,
Right.
You know how much I love hoodies,
Of course,
and
you have to.
you know, and it was this like Captain America or like Marvel type hoodie,
Yeah.
and I never received it.
You're
Paid like 70
kidding.
bucks. Yeah, paid like 70 bucks for it. Nothing in the mail. So,
Terrible.
and then I can't track it, can't do anything. Okay.
The
And the
worst.
second thing was like a necklace or something that I bought
Yeah.
and never received it. So it's
You're
like
joking.
I'm literally 2 for 2 on
Holy
Instagram
shit,
shopping.
that's
So
crazy.
I literally like, unless they like can like verify everything and
Yeah.
make it like legit, which I'm sure I've
That's
seen
what
a
I
few so
mean.
far.
It's like it would
But
have to
like,
change
you know,
completely.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think their idea now is that they want to become a complete e-commerce platform. So where we have our feed, our explore page, our reels, like they want to add an entirely new thing that's just for like looks. So kind of like how
Right.
Pinterest has their like you can
Okay, I
kind
see
of
what you're saying
plan
now.
out your like
Right,
a
right,
plan
right,
out
right.
an outfit, right?
Yeah.
So Instagram will let you like add things to your cart and like plan like, oh, you see Kanye West wearing some cool shoes, sick, drag those into your cart. And you
Right.
can
So
find them
it's
on there. Like it's a
so
whole shopping place.
it's like when you're on like let's say I'm on Foot Locker and shopping
Right.
sneakers and stuff, or like a nice jacket, and then if I see the
Yeah.
model wearing like nice pants, then I could be like, okay, I want those pants as well. And click
Literally,
on them.
the idea
Right.
would be you could take them and then you could see
Drag
them
them.
on there
Yeah.
and drag it into your cart, which would be
Nice.
so cool.
That
So
would be
that'd be
really
like
cool.
I think
And
if
honestly,
they can pull it off,
if that does happen ever, then I guess that's where I'm always shopping. Like
that's what I'm
I don't
saying.
see where like
Yeah. If they do it properly, like they say they're going to try to, it's almost like they know they can't be TikTok because everybody who comes second, you're just not going to do what the first person did, right? You're not going to do it better than them. Like TikTok invented this insane, I mean, Vine was the first one, but TikTok is a better version of Vine. And so by virtue of that, if you're Instagram, you're not going to become TikTok essentially. What you're trying to do is you're trying to integrate like a version of TikTok while also expanding on this e-commerce. And I think you have to still let people share photos. I mean, it's just what Instagram is known for and what they will probably always be a big thing is like showing off, what you're doing currently with stories and then
for sure
a post. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's almost too like I could see Instagram doing dating too, just because so many people are DM sliding already. They could probably add Instagram dating or buy up a Tinder Bumble sort of thing. But
yeah, you'd love that.
Yeah, who knows, man? It's gonna be interesting. I see that shot. I'll take it. I'll wear it. I'll take it on the chin.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what you guys think about that too. Just in terms of, would you want to see Instagram, switch to e-commerce, or now that they plan to do that, and kind of have less photos on the app? What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, now that I understand their whole, like what they're trying to do, like the way you explain it, I would love that.
Yeah,
like
if
obviously
they pull it off.
Yeah, like with the shopping stuff, 100% I'm all in for it.
100% too. I think it will be great if they do it well, but if they do it like they're doing it now and they just expand on it, it's going to be a disaster.
It would be very dangerous though.
Yeah.
Like extremely dangerous because, and the only reason why I'm saying dangerous because shopping's very addictive. And,
oh man.
And we both know that we both are very addicted to shopping.
It's so bad.
So, it's just like, something else that I gotta look out for if that does happen. Like,
it's just be, man.
Hold your composure.
Yeah,
stay calm.
Mindful,
you don't need it.
Yeah, you don't need everything.
Yeah, it's like
the mantra of I can't afford it has to come into
another like Leafs jersey just pops up. I'm like, oh my god, let's go.
It's gonna be ridiculous. I will be looking forward to see what they have and how they do it. And if it ends up being as good as I think it might be, just it'll be the main place people go for. I think fashion would be the main thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's they're posting pictures already.
Right.
But yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Make sure to tune in next week. We're going to do an entire breakdown of every team's pick in the expansion draft for the Seattle Kraken. We're going to put on our GM hat and go crazy here, picking players from every team. It'll be a fun one, so make sure to tune into that. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.